All right. So I'm here today with Dr. Gray, and he's going to answer a couple of questions. He reached out to me on Facebook. I have a lot of strong opinions on the virus and things that are going on, but as a medical professional, I figured I'd hear what he had to say, and he had some valid points. And so I thought, why don't I just interview him, and you guys can see what you think about it and take it for what it's worth. The thing that he reached out to me about on Facebook was face mask. So I think we should start there. A lot of people think that face masks are useful to the virus. And what do you say to that as far as protecting yourself from the from the virus with a face mask?
So I've downloaded, I've done a couple of things on my Facebook page about the data behind masks and disease prevention, specifically respiratory viruses. The bulk of the scientific data predates.
You're coming across a little bit robot.
Is that better? I'm a robot. No. So the bulk of the information predates COVID. It comes from the biggest reviews in what's called Cochrane review. Cochrane database takes any medical topic and they do routine reviews of what data supports why we do what we do, whether it's blood pressure treatment, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes treatment, things like that. So this is what the compelling evidence for or against using certain medications and stuff like that. Why do we do it? These are the disease problems. So the last Cochrane review for wearing masks, and maybe I should backtrack. The review they did was on all physical barriers, masks, goggles, gowns, things like that. That was done in 2011. And with the Cochrane review, they review every single study that's done on a specific topic. They grade the evidence based on, how big was the study, how small was the study, did they blind it, and things like this you can't blind. I mean, you either wear a mask or you don't. And their review of the data on masks specifically showed that it was beneficial for reducing the spread of respiratory viruses. Now, this was done in response to both SARS-1, which was in 2003, and also H1N1, which was 2009. And so this review was in response to that. Now, there are a couple of things that have come through since that are more directly related to COVID. The last study was done. The last review was done in Lancet, which it's basically, you've heard of JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine. Lancet is basically that journal in England, and what they did was review all of the data for masking that was for coronaviruses that are similar to COVID. And part of that is there has not been enough time to do any specific studies with that. Now, there's a couple that are coming through, but they're so small that it's hard to really get anything with. But what they reviewed was SARS-1 and a disease called MERS, M-E-R-S, which is another coronavirus. And they also showed benefit for using masks. Now, the thing I liked about that review was they also reviewed 3 studies that were done on populations outside of the hospital. Because most of the stuff up to that point was, wearing masks in clinics, wearing masks in hospitals, wearing masks and things like that. This they did was actually done on people who were wearing masks in China and South Korea and Japan during the SARS pandemic or epidemic, and also MERS. And they showed benefit for wearing masks for public as well. Now, the size of those studies were a little bit smaller than the hospital-based ones, obviously, because there's just so much more data available. The trouble is people want something that is, if it's not 100%, then why are we going to do it? And that's not how any of this works. This is a pure, and I think I said one time, I am at heart just a soulless mathematician. I have no heart, I have no soul. but math runs the world. And, if I can do something that will make a 50% risk of transmission, which reduces the risk of infection by another 15 or 20%, we will make a reduction in the amount of cases, which subsequently reduces the amount of hospitalizations and deaths. All right, that was long-winded.
Okay, so you think that it will help. When I talked to you once before, you had said something about the fact that it could catch on the mask and prevent it from being inhaled.
Right.
The size of it, the virus.
Right. So and this is people get caught up in this chain link fence thing. The virus itself is 1.2 microns, and 0.12 microns, and a micron is 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. But they travel, and N95 will filter 95% of 0.1 microns or smaller or larger. And so it's kind of right on the cusp of what, just the pure virus itself. But the virus travels in droplets, and droplets range in size from 5 microns up to as many as 50 to 60 microns. And the best test of this, honestly, is if you put on a mask, or you go up to a mirror and you blow on a mirror and you can see it fall. You put on a mask and blow on that mirror, it will still fog a little bit, but it will reduce how much comes through. And that's what the mask is supposed to do, is to catch all the crap leaving me, more so than the stuff landing on me. It will stop some
people
of the
more than to protect yourself?
Well, it does both, but if I'm reducing how much viral particle is in the room around me, I want the sick person to have the mask on. It helps for me to wear it, but it's nowhere near as the impact is far less.
Do you believe that by wearing the mask that you were breaking down your immune system because you were not exposed to the virus, and so therefore you're not building an immunity towards the virus like we've done for years?
No, I think when people portray that, they have a course understanding of how our immune system works. Our immune system is not like a muscle. It's not like the more I work it out, the better it is. I can be exposed to 8 trillion different things and have a very robust immune response to that. But if I'm exposed to something that is brand new, my immune system has to start the whole building blocks of building long-term immunity to that. And so wearing a mask prevents me from getting this infection. And part of what the goal is how long can we put off large masses of people getting infected? Because the longer we can, and this is the whole concept of flattening curve. I don't want to get into this too much, but I would rather get this next January than in April of this year, because there will be more treatments available. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine available. I'm not as
Isn't the vaccine kind of that same concept though? You're putting part of that virus in hopes of an immunity. So why not? Because a lot of people believe that it's already been here.
And in Utah specifically, or just in general? Okay, let's talk about that in a second. So vaccines come in 2 forms. One is dead virus, which means in the flu vaccine, the MMR are the ones most common. So they take the viral particles and kill it so it can't replicate, and then they inject it into, and your body makes an immune response to that. The immune response, so if I'm putting dead virus in me, I can't get sick. And the purpose of a vaccine is to try to build an immune response without causing illness. If I'm exposed to COVID, I will make an immune response and I will hopefully build some durable immunity, but I take the risk of becoming hospitalized and dying, which you don't see that with a vaccine. Other ones are live attenuated viruses, meaning they've altered the genetic makeup of the virus so that it is present in the body but it can invade the cells. But it replicates and can build. And when you look at a live virus vaccine, it's a far more durable immunity than dead ones, because you get a more robust immune response. But with those, there is a little bit of risk that the virus can reactivate, and that's why we don't do oral polio anymore, because for a decade, the only cases of polio in the United States were from the vaccine. I mean, there was a handful of them, which that's great, but we've converted over into the injectable polio, which is for that reason. Now, as far as, this has been around, this is why I love science. So there was a group of doctors in Utah who did antibody studies. And one of them was from Red Rock, space on the name there. It's a physician group in St. George. And basically, they recruited anybody who said, I had a really bad infection this winter, I had, XYZ in January. And they recruited these people statewide to see, okay, do you have antibodies to this? And they postulated it, and I didn't like the way their approach was. They went out to prove that it had been around longer. Mm-hmm. That's not how science works. Science works by saying, okay, let's find out what's going on. But that said, the results of their work showed that less than 1% of the people they tested actually had antibodies. And the earliest case that they could show in our area would have been, or that somebody had antibodies, was somebody who said they were sick in mid-February. And so, the antibody tests have their own problems with false positives, and I don't want to dive into that much. That's a 5-hour discussion. What they showed, and what those doctors came back and said, is that this was not around as much as we thought it was. And part of that is, every year there are plenty of respiratory viruses that we deal with that don't get the attention of influenza in adults. One is called human metapneumovirus, the other one's RSV, which we associate more with kids. But it does cause disease in adults, particularly older folks. Personally, I spent 2 weeks right after New Year's sick at home, coughing up blood. And I thought, for sure that, I had a Chinese foreign exchange student who stayed in my house and this time ago. That clearly was it. I've been antibody test negative twice. Once when I first got back from New York, and 2 weeks after they tested us twice. And so, every bad infection isn't COVID.
But it seems now like every person who's tested is, oh yes, it's COVID, and they don't really have big symptoms like they talk about. And then, there was, I know me, I know my daughter, I know a few people who had a really bad cough that lasted. My daughter was pregnant and had a cough that lasted probably 4 weeks. In the beginning, there was fever and whatnot, and it was just that cough that wouldn't go away. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it was, but at that time, I seen more people sick than I do now. Mm-hmm. And I am an winner. Huh? Yeah. Well, there's the people that were essential workers and they never stopped working. I happened to be one of those, and we didn't have to wear masks. What's that?
I wish I could have got a 2-month vacation.
But we never had to stay home. We worked through everything. As soon as it came out, the kids went out of school, we worked. And I work in,
Go ahead.
I worked in a business where, and I don't know how the virus travels, and maybe it doesn't travel on boxes or whatever. But we never stopped working. We never wore masks. We never, until recently, until maybe like a month ago, we were mandated, but we never did. And nobody was getting sick. You hear about people that got sick, but it's like, if it is as crazy as what they say it is, why do I not know anybody who's been sick? And why is this not, I've seen people die from the flu. I've seen people die from these other viruses, but I'm not seeing that with COVID. I'm hearing about it in places that aren't here. And I know they're saying that it'll probably come later and things like that. But as bad as they say it is, I think that the reason that people are having such a hard time believing it is they're not seeing it. And then you're hearing things or knowing people who are getting false tests, false positives, and not a ton. And you did say, that happens with anything when they test, but the couple that went to St. George and had to wait for 2 hours and they decided to leave, but then 2 days later they have a positive for COVID test. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. So then you hear all these things and you're like, it sounds like they're trying to fudge the numbers. That it's, if I'm not seeing it and it's as bad as it is, and none of us were protected for months in this town. They did do some quarantining with children, but we were still, going to work and touching things that was in every state imaginable. And none of us were getting sick and still had it.
Part of it is it doesn't really spread that well from the surface. And that's where it differentiates from influenza. Influenza is and we call them, in medical terms, we call them fomites. Fomite is anything that I blow my snot on and it touches, and then the next person picks it up and puts it in their mouth. You can spread COVID that way, but it is far, far, far less infectious that way than it is a respiratory infection. To answer your question specifically, part of it is just how much of the disease is actually in our communities. And this is my frustration with the national response, is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And we came out the gates running a 100-meter dash for a race that's a 2-mile run. And so all of the measures that were done, and I guess the best way to put it is, if you're in Arizona right now, you wish you were shutting down right now, not shutting down in April, because the disease wasn't that prevalent in your community in April. And yet we sat around for 6-8 weeks at home, and then people don't have the tolerance for it. I mean, they really should be doing in Phoenix, they should be doing now what they were doing in last week of March, first week of April. But it's the best way to think about when a new infectious disease kind of starts to spread. It's we think of influenza as kind of being ubiquitous, and what that means is it's just pretty much everywhere. I mean, every community, every fall will have influenza outbreaks and things like that. It's just pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah.
This is more like getting 6 feet away from a wall and throwing 5 ounces of paint at the wall. There are areas that are going to be heavily hit, and there are going to be areas that don't have anything at all. And if you really look at it, the higher the population area, the more likely that you're going to be one of those people lots of paint. As time rolls through, it will spread and it will hit everywhere. A couple of minutes. Sorry, that's tomorrow, tonight. Yeah, I'm working tonight. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Sorry, that's.
You're at work. That happens.
Anyway.
So a lot of people think there's like political agenda, obviously, behind it, and world domination and all that, stuff. So do you think? Okay, you talk about the sprint and the marathon and whatever. I mean, they're killing small businesses. They're literally, knocking them out one by one, and then they're paying people to stay home while people are out there supposedly, getting attacked by this virus because they're essential. I mean, why would these people want to ever come back to work when they're paying them all this money? There's so many things out there that make it feel like it's more politically motivated. They're making them kill animals because maybe the animals might be able to contract it. And they started out, no, the animals can't contract it. And they're changing what the symptoms are and what, how you can contract it, how you can't. They're saying that you have to shove this thing clear up into your brain to test for it, but yet we have to wear a mask because someone's going to catch it. Like, why couldn't you just swab your mouth and say, hey, they've got COVID if it's that easy to spread it? You know what I'm saying?
I do. Which one of those do you want me to take?
All of them. They are all super important to the panic of world domination.
So what I will say is politics are politics and everything's political. And I give less than a rat's ass about politics.
It just doesn't seem to fit the craze. You know what I mean? Like, it's so deadly. It's so deadly. Well, where is this happening? I don't see it happening to anybody. And
I encourage everybody, and this not just applies to medicine, is do not view the world on what it looks like outside your front door.
Exactly. I don't see it here.
I challenge anybody to go spend a week in a hospital and then come away saying, oh, this is a bunch of shit. I really do. And honestly, the hoaxers are the ones that really piss me off, because it is an insult to the people who are dying from this and who are fighting it. We're all going to get our turn. Our hope is that our turn doesn't look like what you did. Our hope is that we can mitigate and slow the number of cases so that hospitals can manage it, so that we can delay more time, learn more treatments. But, in 5-6 years, it'll be ubiquitous. And we'll look at this as just there was something else rolling through. The real trouble is in the one question, this is the first time we've dealt with this. And so there are so much that we're learning. It is different than SARS, even though it's a coronavirus. It's
Is it a
different
man-made
than,
virus?
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. There are trillions of viruses that spread among animals that we don't even have any idea. I don't think it's man-made. Certainly if somebody man-made it, they didn't do it very well, because you don't make one that you can't cure yourself from first. So they didn't think that through very well. So I don't think it's man-made, but these viruses tend to jump from people to animals, but it takes a specific mutation to make it be able to spread from person to person. There's not any real reliability that we spread it to animals spread it to us. And I think I saw somewhere on Facebook that if cats could spread COVID, they would. They're disappointed that they can't. There's some fun stuff, but the big thing is, I think that people get wrapped up in what we did wrong over the last 2 or 3 months, and to me, okay. So let me tell you, if the world was run by Jared, this is how March would have gone down. It's always, I always said that in Madison, I call these people from the bleachers. The views are really good from the cheap seats. When you have to make decisions prospectively, it's not as easy. So in March, they're looking at, okay, we're seeing this new virus coming through that we think spreads as easily as influenza. It doesn't, by the way, but at the time they didn't. It appears more deadly than influenza, which it is, more deadly than influenza, and that's proven out. And we do not have the ability to test to find out who has it. Our testing capacity in the United States was terrible. And there are some real things that our government really screwed up along these lines, and I'm not going to get into that now. But and if the model, and so everything that was modeled for how to respond to this was based off what we know about pandemics with influenza, because that's really the only true pandemic that humans have dealt with over the last 100 years. We just most diseases don't spread worldwide like this. And so they're saying, okay, if this spreads like influenza and it's more deadly than influenza, we're looking at 2 million deaths in the United States. And those models are pretty accurate if we don't do anything. Well, we couldn't test to isolate people who were positive, and so they shut everything out. Now, if you lived in Newark or Philadelphia or New York City, what we did wasn't enough. But if you live in Richfield, you're like, why did we do all this? And they're both right. In the areas that were catastrophically hit, the response was inadequate. In areas that didn't have any disease activity, the response was unnecessary. But they're looking for, and they're saying, excuse me, when I talk a lot, I get a dry throat and I cough. I'm not sick.
It's not corona.
I got the wrong one. So you're prospectively looking the same. If we do nothing, based on what we know about influenza pandemics, we're going to see a lot of this. And so let's shut things down. Now, what they should have seen at that point was, okay, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, if you don't have the disease activity in your community, you're not preventing anything. And, there just wasn't enough areas in the country that were having significant amount of disease activity to then maintain a shutdown for a prolonged period of time. It really just didn't make any sense. Ultimately, the only thing that really made a difference to me was the lack of air travel. Just people not flying from New York to the rest of the country probably stopped it as much as anything. It wasn't shutting down schools in Utah. It was that people weren't getting on planes and going to New York and getting sick and coming home. That was probably the thing that shut it down the most. So the areas that weren't hit needed to reactivate, open back up. The areas that were hit hard needed to maintain their lockdown. And the reason for it is what I've said is now, at some point, everyone's going to get their turn. Everyone's going to get their turn in a meaningful amount. That is when you need to go into societal lockdown and stuff like that. So unfortunately, because they overplayed their hand and you know, they sprinted out the door, and now we have 6 miles left. People don't have the appetite for it. They don't have the appetite or the tolerance for it, and so now we're going to see. We're really going to see, as this spreads across the country, what it would have looked like in April if we hadn't done anything. That said, we need to have a couple of treatments that we didn't have in April. We have a better understanding of how it spreads and how quickly it spreads. You know, and these are things we didn't know well. And let's go back to what we didn't know in March that we know now. We know it does not spread as readily as influenza. It just doesn't. And we know it doesn't spread as readily on surfaces, which is true. We know that it spreads prominently through respiratory secretions. That's probably the only way it spreads. I mean, you can pick it up off surfaces, but you've got to have a lot of virus to be able to cause a meaningful infection. The other things we know now that make it a little different than influenza is we know that the prodrome time, which is the time between I'm infected and can spread before I show any meaningful symptoms, is longer than influenza. So the best way to think of influenza is a tornado. It sits down, it hits hard, it crashes through, you know, half of town and then disappears like that. This is a little bit more like a hurricane. It comes in slow, then it builds strength, and then covers over and then passes by a little bit slower. The length of time that I am infectious with coronavirus is longer than influenza. The length of time that it takes me to go from being infectious to feeling sick is longer than influenza. Influenza is like a day or two between the time you contract it. So it's harder to, how do I put this the right way? It's harder to kind of, you know, nail down, because that was one difference between SARS-1 and COVID. Is SARS-1, you really weren't a spreader until you started to feel sick. So they were able to, as soon as people started being sick, they pulled them out, isolated them. And that's kind of one of the difference. We see all these people are being tested that, that are minimally symptomatic, and we're pulling them out, saying, okay, you're going to quarantine at home for 2 weeks, and tell you, you know, your kid's got to stay quarantined with you. In New York in March, they weren't doing that. Those people were going to work. They were giving it to their coworker, who was giving it to their grandma at home, and it was spreading without knowledge. One of the advantages we have now is we can actually test and we can pull people. And so that's one way to mitigate it and allow you to keep things open. But you got to have people willing to be tested to find, even if they're minimally symptomatic, because those are the ones that are going to spread it around.
Did it come from China?
Yes. Yes, it came from China.
So how did it come from China? Did it come from an animal, a bird, a bat? Like
the theory is most coronaviruses come from bats, and part of it is because bats have a period of time in the day that they have higher internal temperatures, and like basically they have a fever twice a day. They go up to like 101, 102 twice a day. So any virus that is going to infect bats has to be a little more heat stable. So most coronaviruses are more heat stable than influenza, and others are. The best that we have is that it spread through some of these markets. Now, I have my different theories on that. Some people think people got it from a bat in the market. I think that somebody came to that market sick, who had contracted it out in their heels or whatever, and spread it through the market. And then it just spread. It got to Europe from China through textile workers who go work in the Milan area. That's how it got there. And the spread in Europe is what landed in the East Coast. You know, we were all paying attention to China, and we shut down air travel to China on January.
So we're all being quarantined.
Yeah, exactly. On January 30th, most of the cases are on the West Coast, originated from China, but they were from American nationals returning home, or that cruise. There was 2 cruise ships, and I can't remember which ones they were. One that was in Japan, and the other one was in San Francisco. But most of the spread, but the number of cases that came from China to the United States were minimal compared to what came from Europe. There was about 150,000 people flew from Italy to New York during the month of February alone. And if 1% of those people were sick, that's 1,500 people. They went to visit family or they went to the sites, and it just kind of slowly spread from there. And we didn't shut down flights to Europe until about March 15th. But by then we were done. I mean, we were toast. And that's why the biggest areas on the East Coast are the major airports coming from Europe: Washington, D.C., Boston, and New York. And then from there, it did spread from New York to Louisiana. The Louisiana outbreak initially was from New York, and the outbreak in Michigan was initially from New York. But while we were kind of keeping China, it all came from Europe, is what really crushed the United States. And it was just, we weren't expecting it from there because no one was paying attention.
So what do you think if they continue on the road that they're on? They're making everybody wear masks to everywhere they go, schools, everything.
I don't think you need to wear masks outside unless you're in a large crowd.
What's that?
I don't think you need to wear masks outside unless you're in a large crowd. I think it's ridiculous.
So, but say that we continue doing, what they're asking us to do. What do we expect come this next flu season? Do you think that we're going to be okay, or do you think that we're going to get hard, or if we don't do it?
Well, the one thing I will say is we will see less influenza. And especially, especially, kids don't seem to be the spreaders for this. It seems to be adults where influenza is a kid spreader. So, we'll see less. We should see less influenza. I don't know what to tell you to answer that question. I really don't. I think what we will see, our hope is that my hope in this is why I'm a big advocate for masks for schools and for people, is we will keep the infection rates down low enough that nobody gets so excited that they want to shut us down. That's the way I look at it. We want school to be as normal. And if we go through a season and it looks pretty calm, maybe we got past fine.
It is possible. Tell these kids and these, whatever. Are these teachers going to be teaching, or are they going to be police officers? Put your mask on. Put your mask on.
Well, and that's. I think the big thing is attitudes that kids have are going to come. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. The attitudes that kids have about it are going to come from their parents. And then from the teacher's standpoint.
And I do have that firsthand, because obviously I'm not a big believer in the mask. I mean, in talking to you, that does help. That does help to understand. But we were in Vegas and I have a daughter who's,
I don't like wearing them.
No, nobody likes to wear them, but I mean, as far as what good is it doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
And what was going on. But
Excuse me.
We had to go to Vegas and we had to wear masks. And it, the whatever went up, and they made it even more that we had to wear masks all around the pool and everything and outside. Mm-hmm. And my daughter started crying and screaming and having a fit, and I'm not going to I can't wear a mask. I can't do it. I'm not going back to school, freaking out. And I was like, how are we going to teach someone who has this mindset,
mm-hmm.
to wear a mask at school, and that she has to? But she ended up trying it on later, and everybody else was wearing it, and she actually thought, oh, I look cute, and started taking pictures, and mindset did change. And so I do believe today the attitude does come from home, and it is possible, but maybe not 100%, because I see in adult people, from ranging from 20 to 60s, where I have a hell of a time keeping them with their mask on at my job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I spend time when they're there saying, put it on, and arguing something that I don't so much believe in myself, but that's like what I'm spending my time doing. You know what I mean?
And so I come back to being
kids going to be like, you know what I mean?
I'm going to come back to the soulless mathematician. If 70% of them are wearing a mask, then we're better than 20%. It's not as good as 100%. It's not as good as 50%.
Yeah.
But it's better than, zero. And so in preventive medicine, we always say that If we don't do absolutely anything, then you're not going to have any response. So 0% of people are wearing masks, will have no impact. 20% will make some impact. It will not be as good as if it was 50%. It will not be good as if it was 70%. The other thing is I don't want people, they talk about, don't touch your mask, don't play with your mask, this type of thing, where, don't police that to start with. Just take it nice as you have it on. You're going like this and rub. It's okay.
Where you get hot, it's hard to.
That's what people gotta realize is that that's okay. We could teach mask hygiene after we get people accustomed to wearing them. And based on, and again, I come back to what do we know about how this thing spreads. I think mask hygiene is less of an issue for COVID than it is influenza, because influenza spreads so much easier by touch. And so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. If I've got a kid who has a mask on and he's playing with all the time, I'm not going to say anything. He's happy he has a mask on. Ultimately, the masks really are to protect the adults at school too. And also just to reduce, like I said, if they have a major outbreaks in the schools, they're going to shut it down.
Yeah.
And
Don't want to see that.
I don't see that either.
Awesome.
Be a solace.
Get back to work. Did you have some closing stuff you wanted to say?
Yeah, I said be a soulless mathematician. That's, it is just a raw numbers and a raw numbers game. Yeah. The less people that get infected, the less it can spread, the less that will have people in the hospital, less people will die. And I'm a big advocate for this because anytime somebody comes to the hospital and somebody says to me, I need you to do everything you can for my grandma, I'm going to do everything I can. Now, I can't do hardly any treatments for anybody who has this disease, so the best thing I can do is try to prevent as many cases as I can. And these measures will reduce cases. Will it reduce it by 20%, 50%? I don't know if anybody even knows the answer to those questions at this point. It will make an impact. And if we can make a marginal impact, that multiplies over communities and multiplies over. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you talking to me, and maybe as this goes on a little further, maybe meet with me again, give me some more insight later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The longer we go at this, the more things that we will know and understand. That's the other thing I would say is people should understand how science works. What we know today very likely could be wrong for what we know 6 months from now. Yeah, those things could likely be wrong from 6 months from now.
Yeah.
And so changing recommendations are based on changing science. And where there's something where there's no knowledge, there's going to be a lot of changing science. So patience with that and preach that.
So basically what I got from this is that it's droplets that are the big thing that causes it, and your masks stop droplets.
Stop droplets from people. And the big thing is it's sucking the droplets into your lungs. That's where the disease is mostly caused.
So it's not the teeny tiny particles that we're breathing, it's the droplets. And so that's where the masks do help, because it's not there, because you see the stupid little memes and whatnot. Well, you can smell a fart through your mask, then you're going to get the disease. And it's like, what good is your mask, kind of a thing, because they're thinking. Right. And that was my thing as well. And so I guess if people don't understand that, then they don't see the point of it. And I think if there was also an end in sight, people might be more, but they're seeing as this is us forever, and nobody's telling us that it's not.
I told you that I don't surrender to this. I don't surrender to any longer.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Gray.
I think we should do everything to prevent the new normal, but we have to do something to prevent that. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Awesome. All right. I appreciate you taking your time to talk to us today.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to you
later. Have a good one. We did it.